You're at 3 a.m. The baby has been crying for 2 hours straight. You've tried everything: feeding, rocking, walking around, putting them down, picking them back up. Nothing works. And somewhere in the back of your exhausted brain, a thought appears that you immediately feel guilty about. Just stop crying. Now imagine that same moment, except there are no walls around you, no door to close, no white noise machine, no neighbors to worry about. Well, actually, neighbors are the least of your problems. Your real problem is that it's dark. You're in or near a cave, and about 200 meters away, something large is moving through the undergrowth. Something that hunts at night, and your baby will not stop making noise. This wasn't a bad night for ancient humans. This was just a night. So let's start with the obvious question nobody asks. Why do babies cry so much in the first place? The answer is actually kind of brutal when you think about it. Human babies are born earlier than they should be. Compared to other primates, we come out weirdly underdeveloped. A baby horse can walk within hours. A baby chimp can grip and cling immediately. But a human baby can't do anything except lie there and make noise for months. The reason is our heads. Human brains grew so large, so fast in evolutionary terms, that if we stayed in the womb long enough to be fully developed, we'd never fit through the birth canal. So we come out early, helpless, completely dependent. And the only tool we have to communicate anything at all is crying. Hungry? Cry. Cold? Cry. Scared? Cry. Gassy? Also cry. Apparently at length and with great commitment. And here's the thing, that cry is not an accident. It's specifically designed to be impossible to ignore. Studies have shown that the frequency of a baby's cry sits right in the range that the human brain finds most urgent and hardest to tune out. It's not annoying by coincidence. It's annoying by design. Evolution made it that way because a baby that could be easily ignored was a baby that died. So ancient humans had the same problem you have. A crying baby, no idea why, and no manual. Except they also had predators. This is the part that changes everything. In the Pleistocene, a crying baby wasn't just exhausting, it was dangerous. Cave lions, hyenas, leopards, these animals hunted at night, and they were very good at finding things by sound. A crying infant was essentially a dinner bell. There's actual archaeological evidence for this. At several South African cave sites, researchers have found infant remains with puncture marks consistent with large cat attacks. Not adults, infants specifically, because they were the most vulnerable and the loudest. So ancient parents weren't just tired, they were scared. And that combination, exhaustion plus fear plus a baby that won't stop, created serious pressure to figure out what actually worked. And they did figure it out, faster than you might think. The first and most important thing they had that you probably underestimate is body contact. For almost all of human history, babies were never put down, not on a mat, not in a corner, not in a separate sleeping area. They were carried constantly, on the body, against skin, moving with the parent all day and night. We know this partly from modern hunter-gatherer groups that still live close to how ancient humans lived. Among the Kumsan people of the Kalahari, babies are held or carried in skin slings for roughly 90% of daylight hours. Studies comparing these infants to babies in industrialized societies found something striking. They cry significantly less. Not a little less, about half as much. Which makes a certain amount of sense. Just think about it. You spent 9 months inside a moving body, surrounded by warmth and heartbeat and constant motion. And then suddenly you're lying flat and still and alone and cold, and absolutely nothing about this situation makes sense. I mean, of course you cry. The sling was probably one of the first pieces of technology ancient humans ever made. Not for hunting, not for tools, for keeping the baby quiet. But body contact only goes so far. Sometimes the baby still cried. And when that happened in a world with predators nearby, Ancient parents needed other options fast. Rhythmic motion was a big one. Rocking, swaying, walking in patterns. This isn't cultural, it's biological. The vestibular system, the part of the brain that processes movement and balance, is deeply connected to the systems that regulate arousal and crying in infants. Movement calms them at a neurological level. Ancient parents didn't know that. They just knew it worked. Sound was another. Shushing, humming, low, repetitive sounds. Again, not a cultural thing. White noise mimics the sound environment inside the womb. Blood flow, heartbeat, muffled ambient noise. A parent making low, rhythmic sounds next to a crying baby wasn't doing something random. They were recreating the sonic environment the baby had lived in for 9 months. And then there was nursing, not just for hunger. Nursing has a mechanical calming effect on infants, regardless of whether they're actually hungry. The sucking motion itself regulates the nervous system. Ancient mothers nursed on demand, constantly, for years longer than is typical in modern societies. Partly for nutrition, but also because it worked. Here's where it gets interesting though, because ancient humans also had something modern parents largely don't: help. A human baby in a small band of 20 to 50 people wasn't just the responsibility of the mother. There's a concept in anthropology called alloparenting. The idea that in early human groups, non-parent members of the group actively participated in caring for infants. Grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, unrelated adults who had bonds with the family. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have found that infants are held by non-mothers for roughly 40 to 60% of the time. The mother is rarely the only caregiver. The group raises the child. And this matters for the crying problem specifically, because exhausted parents make worse decisions. A mother who hasn't slept in 3 days is less able to read her infant's cues, less able to respond calmly, less able to problem solve. But if someone else can take the baby for a few hours, someone who isn't running on empty, the baby often settles faster. The village wasn't just a nice thing to have. It was a survival mechanism for the baby and for the parents. Now, about the predator problem. There's a darker side to this that researchers have documented and that nobody really likes to talk about. In situations of genuine danger, where a crying infant posed a real and immediate threat to the survival of the entire group, there is evidence that ancient humans sometimes made impossible decisions. Infanticide in prehistoric populations is documented across multiple archaeological sites globally. It wasn't common, it wasn't casual, but it happened. And in most cases, researchers believe it happened in crisis situations. Extreme food scarcity, immediate predator threat, or infants born with conditions that made survival unlikely. This isn't comfortable to read, but it's part of the honest picture of what ancient human life actually was. The love for children was real. The lengths people went to in order to keep infants alive were extraordinary. And the situations that led to those impossible choices were also real. So here's the full picture. A crying baby in the ancient world was a medical emergency, a security threat, and an exhausting daily reality all at once. Ancient parents responded with near constant physical contact, rhythmic motion, nursing, sound, and critically, with help from everyone around them. They didn't have sleep training guides or pediatricians or white noise machines. What they had was each other, and a level of communal involvement in childcare that most modern parents can barely imagine. You're up at 3 a.m. rocking a crying baby, and you feel completely alone. Your ancient ancestor was doing the same thing, terrified, exhausted, out of ideas. But there were 4 other adults in that cave who'd been through it, and one of them was probably already awake, already reaching over to help. That part we lost somewhere along the way.